Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Ari Lax, and today we got a real nice one lined up, just in time in a lot of ways. So, just in time for Grand Prix Washington DC, hosted just outside the city limits in Northern Virginia by StarCityGames.com, actually in the city I live right now. So, nice. Get a home company, hometown GP, real nice. And the other just in time is that this deck is going to be the one that Shaheen Sudurani has an article going up today about, if I timed everything right. Late last week, he made a post saying, "Wow, we haven't been playing Scarab God in Control. How did we not figure this out?" And this week, I'm like, I want to try some more Scarab God decks because that card is the nuts. Absolutely just an insane magic card. I remembered his tweet. I'm like, "Hey, are you working on Scarab God Control?" He's like, "Yes, I am. I'm writing an article about it Friday. Here you go." And here we go. So I've kind of simplified the deck a little bit. We've got a bunch of basics, bunch of non-basics, 27 land, pretty land heavy, but one of the cool things about Scarab God is you get to exploit the Grixis cycling lands, so your 27 land deck plays like it has 27 or less lands. You will notice a trim on Spire Bluffs and Fumaroles. The mana is, we'll get to how it got fixed a little bit, but the mana is fixed enough that you don't need a huge density of those lands that could enter the battlefield tap, which allows you to play more cycling lands, which not only fixes your flood problems, but also supports the Scarab God, which is nice. The fourth Fumarole was just cut for the Canyon Slough. The idea being that Fumarole isn't really a great win condition. It occasionally wins games, occasionally speeds up your clock, but realistically, the best thing Fumarole does is pressure Planeswalkers. And even then, because Chandra's the prevalent one that goes to immediate 5, it's hard to pressure it with Fumarole given this setup. I think that's about it on the lands. You have 8 black sources for the Scarab God with the Ether hubs. The hubs aren't the greatest. They can be a little stretched. Like, if you ever have to tap your hub for black mana, it can be difficult to... Sorry, for red mana, it can be difficult to use it for black mana twice for the Scarab God. But often, I guess you can also just like fire off multiple glimmers or harness the game. It's not the end of the world, but it can be awkward. So we've got the blue interaction and the red interaction. You've got 23 interaction. You're just all interaction. Control deck. Sensor is okay. It's not the most exciting card, but cycling lets you flex stuff a little bit. Often gets boarded out. In my opinion, I trim on this card. Against Mardu. I played it actually funny story, a 3-round 3-0 drop with this deck when I noticed a couple of the sideboard cards had been not loaded properly, and with my 12-card sideboard, I actually still just 3-0'd anyways. The deck was really good. But I boarded out Censor against Mardu, and I would trim it against Red as well. They can flex around it usually, and having a 2-mana like conditional interactive spell that costs you a mana to get rid of is not the greatest. Scatter's pretty important against the gods. I was not a huge fan of Essence Scatter before Hour of Devastation and in testing for Hour of Devastation because it sometimes didn't hit what you needed it to. But playing against like Hazarets and Scarab Gods, that's what you needed to hit. So Essence Scatter, back up in stock. We have a couple Disallow, which is one of the things that allows the mana in this deck to trim down on these blue-red duels. You're not so heavy on blue-blue and then turn to red spell. You still want a couple disallows. You still need some hard counters. I don't know if the third is... The problem with adding the third is that it's really good in a lot of matchups, but it's a huge liability often. So, like, the matchups where it's good, you should technically be good anyways, bar mirror matches, like the Teamer decks or whatever, the big mid-range decks. So trimming one just helps you in your bad matchups. So I'm okay with only 2 for now. And then 4 Supreme Will, the split card of Dig and Counter is really nice. The 4th one was just added over a Hieroglyphic Illumination. I don't think Hieroglyph is right, but I'm not sure the 4th Supreme Will is actually good. I'll have to play a little more and see, because it is kind of, I was saying Disallow can be a liability. Well, this card is also a similar having to pay a bunch of mana liability. So we'll see. I don't know what it would be instead, though. Yeah, I just really have no idea. Moving along, I guess maybe... Revolutionary Rebuff gets bad too fast, though. I don't know. I'll think about it. We got our red interaction. We can go a little lighter on Magma Spray. There's less red, but more importantly, there's less Scrap Heap Scroungers around, so you don't really have to spray down a lot of stuff. And spray's not great against like Cubs or whatever. It is nice to spray down Servants out of Teamer. One of the ways Teamer can kind of get you is get the jump on you and get a Chandra out underneath your interaction, which is kind of a problem at times. But yeah, it's not great in that matchup. It's not great in a lot of matchups, so it gets sideboarded out. The Zombies is also dying down, so again, you don't need as many as you would need in some metagames. So worth noting that if things, I guess there isn't much left to cycle around, but there could be worlds where an additional Magma Spray would be good. We've got a split on a Braid and Harness. I don't really have enough expertise to say if this split is right now or not. I actually kind of think Harness might just be better right now by a lot. I guess a Braid kills Boat and Heart a little more conveniently, but Harness, I guess a Braid kills Hulk in the mirror and Verdurous Hulks, but I think that the energy off Harness with the hubs trying to tap for black might be better. So that's something to look into, whether it should be 2 of Braids, 4 Harness, or this 3-3. But they're just the most efficient and removable spells in the format. Also worth noting, there's not a lot of... I guess a Braid is a required card to fight Gift, so that might be part of it. Again, there's just a lot of ifs and ands, you know, if people start playing Oketra's Monument again. Anyways, you want a bunch... These are the best kill spells. You want a bunch of them. Then you got Hour of Devastation, just very powerful sweeper. Cleans up a lot of problems, notably, you know, like Chandra, Gideon, all that great stuff that people try to beat you with. And then we got the ways to win. The easiest way to win is just to resolve Glimmer Genius and on tap in a safe board, because you just get so far ahead and get 2 quality cards, and the game basically ends most of the time. Great. We've known this for a while. The other ways to end the game are Torrential Gearhulk. Oh, well, we've known that one for a while. The card's just great. And then the Scarab God. So the Scarab God really changes how the control deck gets to function. The difference between your 5th mana and your 6th mana is huge. So you get to deploy a board stabilizing threat earlier than you would. If it gets removed, you don't lose a lot of value on that because it usually just goes back to your hand. If you untap, it runs away with the game just immediately, which is absurd. And then late game, the late game Scarab Gods out of this deck are just like absolutely unbelievable. I didn't think about it until it came up. But when you cast Scarab God with 4 up and a Gearhulk in your graveyard, the game ends. Like, your opponent just gets their turn, and they're just like, wait. They just get to make a 4/4 that counters my spell. That's... And then they concede the game. There's no more after that. The card is just really, really good. Being able to pressure opposing Planeswalkers, it just does everything. I've been impressed with the card repeatedly, but I don't know if it's been more impressive than it is in this shell. Moving to the sideboard, this is exactly what Shaheen sent. So we'll go through. I didn't have the most in-depth sideboard conversations with him, but we'll go through and talk a little bit about this stuff with some question marks of my own personal opinion inserted. So we got Whirlers and Multiform Wonders as your way to handle red. You get to bog down the board, chomp Hazoret, pressure Chandra, gain life back, survive Chandra shots. Great, that's fine. I trust that those are the ways to do that. You've got Chandra's Defeat as a way to kill Chandra there. Worth noting, in my previous league, I played Teamer twice, and I boarded in Chandra's Defeat, but I don't actually think you want both there, especially if they're Scarab Godding. I actually think that a lot of the cards you care about post-board are things that don't die to Chandra's Defeat. It really just kills Chandra. I don't think Glorybringer is a real enough threat, so it's actually even possible you want 0 there. Like, I thought the idea that it could kill a creature or Chandra, it's not good enough at that. So this is like your red package. You have Outcast as a way to bury other mid-range decks. I don't like it against Teamer. I think that they have enough threats that can just Shriekmaw it that I don't want to expend a card on it. It's kind of sketchy. Let's just put it that way. But it does run away with games against other decks. It also lets you, like, turbo out against Ramp a little bit. You've got a bunch of negates to fight against Gift. Outcast is also just going to be really good against Gift, by the way. Just a threat that gets in under their stuff unless you leave up interaction the whole game. So let you fight against Gift, it fights Mirrors, it fights Ramp, whatever. Negate's great. Additional Magma Spray to hedge against Zombies and Scrap Heap. Then we got Dark Intimations, and I immediately asked Shaheen what that was for. And it's just a spell to bury Teamer, Black-Green, just the various mid-range decks of the format. not so much zombies where their cards kind of cascade and you need to sweep, but like any deck where they're like, oh, single card threat, you can just intimations and get 3-for-1 or even 4-for-1 against them and win the game. So yeah, this is the deck. It's not very complicated. These control decks never really have been ever since, well, they used to be back when they had to fight against like the black-green delirium decks where you'd see like a huge percentage of your deck, you needed specific answers to line up against everything. But ever since that deck was gone, they've just been like the most efficient answers and the best threats. And this deck, I think, offers enough new stuff in that department that I am excited to play with it.